Welcome back to the channel. I'm Austin, and it's time for the EM2 vs C58, discussing which one is the best high damage assault rifle within Warzone. First I'm going to go over the stats, then I'll give you my opinion on which weapon is the best, and then finally give you the best class setup for each weapon at the end. We're going to go over the most important stats for high damage assault rifle options right now. So to start off, we're going to go over max bullet velocity, and these weapons are identical at 1155. This is a good thing because they both easily make it within the meta bullet velocity for assault rifles. One aspect where high damage ARs are always going to struggle is going to be with fire rate, because if you have high damage and a high fire rate, the TTK is going to get out of hand and it's going to be pretty OP. Let's compare these two exactly. The C58 is going to come out slightly ahead with 550 rounds per minute compared to the EM2's 530. These weapons are not very forgiving to players who miss shots, so it is highly important to be accurate. More bullets downstream is always going to be a good thing, so the C58 will get the slight nod in this category. But hey, we are talking about high damage assault rifles, so let's talk about the damage. The EM2's average damage at close range is going to be 47 compared to 40.5 for the C58. This advantage will hold true at long range as well, with a 42.25 to 38.75 advantage. But if we're going to take a look at a damage breakdown, we're going to look at close range first. We're going to be looking at head, chest, stomach, and limb damage. We can see that the C58 looks as though it will be more consistent with its close range damage output because it has no damage drop off from chest to limbs, whereas the EM2 drops off from the chest to stomach. The reason this isn't true is because the EM2 actually doesn't have a TTK drop off from the damage lowering. This holds true at long range as well as we switch over. All I'm trying to say is that the EM2 is going to have more damage overall while feeling consistent like the C58. So if you hit your shots, you're going to like both these weapons, and if you don't, you will highly dislike both of them immensely, so just hit your shots. Now that we've gone over fire rate and damage, TTK logically has to follow is what I'm thinking, and the most likely time to kill at close range is going to be the EM2 with a significant advantage of 565 milliseconds to 655. However, with the EM2, it takes 6 shots to kill, and one of them needs to be a chest shot, and I know before I said that the damage dropping off didn't really affect the time to kill. That's because getting one chest shot with 5 stomach or limb shots is really easy in my opinion, and with the C58, it just needs to hit 7 shots anywhere on the body, so that is a little bit of a nice advantage over the EM2 right there. But if you can get 2 headshots with the C58, its TTK will drop down below the EM2's with 545 milliseconds. However, if you can get 2 headshots with the EM2 as well, its TTK drops to an insane 452 milliseconds. The EM2 is basically saying, whatever you can do, I can do better. Before switching to the long range time to kill, let's actually talk about the range itself on these weapons. And they're basically identical with 26 meters to 25 meters respectively. The range of these weapons are so similar that there isn't really an advantage for either weapon. Moving to long range TTK, the EM2 is going to come out with a huge advantage of 678 milliseconds to 764. The EM2 will only take 7 shots to kill, and you can hit any part of the enemy to get this TTK. 7 shots to limb is still going to knock the player. And with the C58, it takes 8 shots to kill, and you can also hit any part of the body to get that TTK. So they're both going to feel really consistent, but where the C58's advantage lies is you only need 1 headshot to lower its shots to kill to 7 and gives you the TTK of 655 milliseconds. With the EM2 to lower its shots to kill, you're either going to need 1 or 2 headshots, and this is where that damage lowering from chest to stomach really comes into play. If you want 1 headshot to lower the time to kill, you're going to need to hit a minimum of 3 chest shots with that. If you hit 2 or less, it will then take 2 headshots to get that down. But what is the TTK when it's lowered? It's going to be 565 milliseconds. If you guys have noticed, what this 1 headshot does to the time to kill is it just lowers it to their close range TTKs from before that you saw in the last section. And the EM2's damage drop off from chest to stomach doesn't affect the weapon drastically, but the C58 will be slightly more forgiving to use at long range because of its consistent damage across the body. Taking a look at damage per mag, the C58 will come out ahead with an 1870 to 1600 advantage. This set is more important the bigger the mode. This makes the stat the most influential on quads because you can knock more players with 1 mag. You can actually raise the damage per mag of the EM2 by using the 50 round instead of the 40 round, but the EM2 has some serious ADS issues. Quick tip, never ever pick up the purple or gold EM2 because you can run a mile and come back before you can aim down sights. Switching over to the long range damage per mag, the EM2 is a little bit better with a 353 DPS to 312. Basically, this just means you can have more damage output at range with the EM2. Fun fact, a higher DPS just means the weapon will have a better time to kill. Finally, moving over to the movement stats, the C58 is going to have a few major pros. It has a quicker ADS, movement, reload, and strafe speed. So we've been hearing the EM2 and all the things it does better than the C58, but the EM2 is a super heavy, slow-moving assault rifle that gets into LMG territory a little bit. As you can see with all these stats on screen, you're going to have slightly better movement. The ADS is going to be significantly better. Remember what we said, you can run a mile and come back before you can aim down sights with the ground loot EM2. So obviously when we build the class setup, we're going to make that a little bit better so it's manageable. And the reload's a little bit better on the C58. The strafe speed, however, that is a huge advantage for the C58. It's going to allow you to move while you're shooting a bit more to avoid bullets. So that's a big advantage to the C58. If you guys could do me a quick favor and like the video, it really helps. Maybe even subscribe as well. Alright, I've given you all the relevant stats for these weapons, and it's time for my verdict. The EM2. The extraordinary TTK while being fairly consistent in its results while having exclusively vertical recoil make it easy to control, make this a top tier weapon within Warzone. I'm still a big fan of the C58, but the EM2 just does the C58's job better. You can run into problems with the EM2's poor movement, but if you know how to use it, nothing is better within the game. The C58 is more versatile, but the EM2 is more specialized. With all that being said, let's get into the best class setups. We're going to start with my recommended weapon first, the EM2, and what we're going to be doing for this build is we're going to be getting the recoil down, the bullet velocity up, and making sure that the ADS isn't completely atrocious. What we're going to start off with is the agency suppressor because it gets us bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil control. And then when we move over to the barrel, there's two options here, but I'm going to just start with my recommended one, the task force, because this is going to be the best for getting your recoil down while still giving you bullet velocity and effective damage range. And then when we go over to the optic, I'm going to go with the axial arms 3 times because it doesn't affect our ADS like the Royal and Cross 4 times. Basically what we're doing is we're trying to make sure none of the attachments we put on lower our ADS any worse than it already is on the base weapon. And then we go to ammo. I like the 40 round one because all it does is lower your reload quickness, whereas if you went to the 50 round mag, while having 10 extra bullets is nice, your ADS does get lowered. So I do not recommend that at all. I would go with the 40 round. And then we're going to go over to the underbarrel where I like the field agent grip, so we get the horizontal and vertical recoil down. But let's say maybe you want to go for one that has a better ADS build, but the recoil isn't as tamed down, I guess you could say. You would switch the task force barrel to the Ranger. While it still helps your vertical recoil and gives you bullet velocity, it doesn't do quite as much as the task force for bullet velocity. So you can go to the 27.4 task force, it's going to get your ADS up, and then if you take off the field agent grip and then you go over to the serpent wrap, this will make the weapon feel a lot nicer, but I think the recoil will be out of control. I would say the only way to get recoil better is you have to keep the field agent grip on. You have the 27.4 Ranger instead of the task force, but my recommended build is to use the 25.8 task force, and this is going to be a laser and assault rifle. The ADS will be acceptable, not great, and it's going to have basically the fastest time to kill among all ARs within Warzone. And I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a few seconds because last video some of you guys were complaining that I went off the screen a little too quick and you couldn't get your screenshots in. Here you go. Now we're going to be doing the C58 best class setup, and this is still a really good weapon, just a little bit different than the EM2. For the class setup, we're basically doing the same thing. We're going for bullet velocity, recoil control, and effective damage range, so we got to start with the agency suppressor. Then for the barrel, 18.5 task force. We're basically building this the same exact way that we just built the EM2. So you already know, axial arms 3 times, ammunition, Stagnag 55 round, because even though this one does lower the ADS, we don't have such a bad start to the weapon for the aim down sight speed, so we can afford to make it go down a little bit. So this is why you get the more damage per mag and why it's a little bit nicer to use in quads. But then we go over to the underbarrel and we do the field, okay, not the SFOD speaker, the field agent grip. And this is the class setup, which I'll leave on screen right now. But this is a really good weapon. And now if you guys want to know what SMG to pair with it, I'll have 2 videos linked on the screen right now. Make sure to check them out. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.